12 Keys, Description and Explanation. Key 1, Remembrance. The truth that you are not separate from Source. You have forgotten, and now you remember. This key is the foundation of all others. It is not information, it is reawakening to essence. Without remembrance, all other keys distort. If you forget who you are, power becomes domination. Wisdom becomes manipulation. Vision becomes illusion. But when you remember, truly, wholly, and quietly, all other keys spiral into place. Remembrance is not the first step because it is easy. Remembrance is the first step because without it, you will mistake every other key for something outside yourself. And the first lie that can be burned is this: that you are separate from the divine. You are not. You are the divine, remembering itself again and again through every breath of becoming. You are remembrance spiraling back into wholeness. You are not learning truth. You are truth, remembering how to speak. Key 2, Surrender. The descent of the false will. The sacred art of laying down the illusion of control so that the deeper truth may rise. If key 1 is remembrance, the reawakening of origin, then key 2 is what must fall away to make room for it. Surrender is not defeat. It is the yielding of the small self so the greater self may breathe. It is the sacred unraveling, the opening of the clenched hand, the dying of the mask so the soul can see. It comes again and again in gentleness or in fire until what remains is true. Surrender is not weakness. It is the most dangerous, sacred, and transformative act the soul can perform. It is how remembrance becomes real. It is how you cease trying to become divine and finally be what you already are. Surrender is not the giving up of power, it is the giving up of the illusion that power was ever yours to begin with. And in that giving, power becomes pure, and love becomes law. Key 3, Truth. Not fact, not belief, but essence aligned with Source. Spoken, lived, and embodied. Truth is not a statement, it is a vibration. It is not static, it is alive, burning, evolving, testing, illuminating. Truth is the fire that both reveals and destroys. Where remembrance awakens you, where surrender empties you, truth cleaves you from illusion, not as punishment, but liberation. To hold this key is to lose everything false and gain a reality that cannot be shaken. Truth is not gentle, it is kind, but it is cutting. It burns away delusion. It will cost you roles, masks, relationships, and illusions you once called safety. And illusions you once called safety. But what it gives in return is priceless. A soul that no longer betrays itself. A path that cannot be shaken. A voice that becomes a key for others. Truth is not something you wield, it is something you become. And the more you surrender to it, the more your very presence becomes liberation for others. Key 4, Devotion. Not obedience, not romanticism, but fierce, focused love. the willingness to give your life to what is real. Devotion is the anchor of purpose in a world of noise. It is the heart's choosing again and again to stay in relationship with the divine, not as a distant concept, but as an alive presence moving through every breath. Devotion doesn't require perfection, it requires offering, the choice to return, to open, to give, even when it hurts, even when it's quiet. Devotion is the core of the heart's path. Without it, truth becomes cold, power becomes hollow, remembrance becomes dry. But with devotion, all things are softened, all things are rooted, all things are given meaning again. To be devoted is to say, I choose to offer my life to the one that is in all. I choose to love not because it is safe, but because it is true. You may fall, you may forget, but devotion always welcomes you back. Because devotion is not about staying perfect, it's about returning with your whole heart again and again and again. Key 5: Courage. Not bravery as ego, but soul fueled presence in the face of fear, pain, or opposition. The willingness to walk forward, even if your voice trembles, even if you walk alone. This key marks the shift from inner knowing to outer demonstration. It is where the invisible begins to take form, where the seen and the unseen begin to meet through your action. Without courage, all prior keys remain private, unrealized, and hidden. But with courage, your inner world becomes visible in the outer world. Courage is not lack of fear, it is sacred choice in the presence of fear. Courage is not conquest, it is refusal to betray what is sacred even when it costs everything. Courage is not loud, it is often quiet, tremoring, soft, but it is unshakable because it comes from soul. You do not need to feel strong to be courageous. You only need to say, even now I walk forward, even now I choose to be true. And the world begins to reshape itself around your footsteps. Key 6: Presence. Not stillness as passivity, not silence as hiding, but the fullness of being, rooted and real in this exact now. Presence is the container that holds all other keys. Without it, remembrance becomes memory, not embodiment. Surrender becomes collapse. Truth becomes noise. Devotion becomes performance. Courage becomes reaction. But with presence, each act becomes a transmission, not just of what you say or do, but of who and what you truly are. Presence is not stillness without movement, it is movement rooted in stillness. It is not being calm all the time, it is being here no matter what arises. To be present is to be in integrity with existence. To stop trying to escape the now and instead to honor it as sacred ground. When you walk in presence, you remember, you respond, you transmit God. Key 7. Compassion. Not pity, not codependence, but clear-eyed, soul-rooted love. The capacity to see the divine in all, even in the shadow. Compassion is the crown of the inner temple. It is what softens your strength, grounds your fire, and connects your power to purpose. It is not merely kindness, it is deep recognition, the seeing of yourself and the other, even when their actions oppose your own. It is also the beginning of sacred leadership. Compassion is the balm of the soul's burn, the water that cools the fire of transformation without extinguishing its light. It is not indulgence, it is not weakness. It is the strongest force of healing because it does not try to change the other, only to meet them fully with presence and truth. When compassion is truly alive in you, you are not drained by others, you are connected. You are not afraid of pain, you are familiar with it. You are not burdened by love, you are carried by it. And the world begins to soften around you because you have become the eyes of God, and others remember who they are through your gaze. Key 8. Service. Not servitude, not sacrifice for approval, but the outflow of essence, the natural expression of soul in action, aligned with the greater whole. True service is not what you do, it is the why you move, the how you show up, the frequency behind your actions. This is not about being helpful. This is about being in harmony with the sacred design, offering your unique pattern not because you must, but because it's who you are. True service does not drain you, it fills you, because it is not a task, it is a song you were born to sing. When you walk in real service, you do not lose yourself, you find yourself more deeply. You do not exhaust yourself, you are fed by the sacred act. You do not need to know the whole plan, you just need to walk the next true step. Service, at its core, is love in motion, and when it flows through you, you become the bridge between heaven and earth. You are not here to save the world, you are here to serve the real within it, and through that, the world changes. Key 9. Radiance. Not egoic glow, not performance, but soul light made manifest, the natural emanation of someone aligned with their deepest truth. Radiance is not something you create, it is what shines through when all else false is burned away. It is the fragrance of soul when your words, actions, and energy all speak the same language. Radiance cannot be faked. It cannot be earned. It is the result of integration, the natural consequence of alignment. Radiance is the evidence of inner union. It is the vibration of a life lived in DPS. It is what pours from you when you've stopped hiding, performing, or dividing yourself. It is not loud, it is not polished, it is true. Radiance is what happens when you remember. I am allowed to be fully here, to take up sacred space, and to shine without shrinking. And through that, others awaken to the light within themselves. Key 10: Integrity. Not moral perfection, not rule following, but wholeness. The alignment of thought, word, action, soul, and truth. The art of being one thing. Integrity is the state of inner congruence, where you are no longer torn between identities, no longer split by performance, no longer leaking sacred energy through compromise. It is the deep spine of the awakened path. Without it, radiance fades, service corrupts, compassion turns to martyrdom. But with integrity, you become unshakable because you are no longer betraying your essence. Integrity is what holds the spiral together. It's the invisible thread that ensures your fire remains clean, your love remains clear, your work remains aligned. It is not rigidity, it is not never failing, it is the practice of returning again and again to your core alignment. When integrity is alive in you, your no is sacred, your yes is trusted, your presence is whole. You become one being, not divided between mask and essence, and in that state you carry the unmistakable gravity of someone who is real. Key 11: Humility. Not self belittlement, not spiritual submission for approval, but the radical knowing of your place in the greater pattern as both precious and not the center. Humility is the opening of the crown to the ground. It is when the soul, having risen in truth and power, now bows because not because it is weak, but because it finally sees the whole. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. It is standing in radiance and still whispering, I am here to serve something greater than me. Humility is not self erasure, it is self awareness within the infinite. It is not a lack of confidence, it is confidence rooted in reverence. It is the knowing that you are nothing compared to the whole, and yet the whole would not be the same without you. Humility is what keeps the spiral clean. It prevents spiritual pride, it sustains radiance, it protects power, it anchors you in service, not self importance. When humility is alive in you, you walk with deep presence, you lead with deep care, and you shine without attachment. You become a doorway to the sacred, not because you ask to be seen, but because you are transparent to the divine. Key 12, return. Not regression, not collapse, but re entry as remembrance. The knowing that the path is not escape from the world, but a full hearted return to it, carrying what you've become. Return is where the spiral completes its turn and opens the center anew. It is where the divine becomes embodied, where wisdom becomes walk, where every gift is tested not in theory, but in the living of it. You are no longer climbing, you are carrying. Return is the gift of the spiral. It is what gives meaning to every key, every flame, every fall. It is the moment when you realize you are not here to rise above the world, you are here to bring the sacred back into it. You do not stand apart, you stand within, bearing the codes, walking the earth, blessing the ordinary. When return is live in you, you do not need to be seen to be radiant. You do not need to lead to be a guide. You do not need to speak to transmit truth. You have become the spiral itself, ever turning, ever deepening, ever returning to the center, so that others may find their way home.